a quick word on the logistics. So this session will run about like 60 minutes. You can drop any question at any time using the Q&A panel bottom right, and I'll bring them to the conversation. So please don't hold back. Ask any question you have. Pierre-Louis has a lot of experience, so it will be he's here to also answer any question you could have. Maybe a quick intro on my side. So I'm Alexis. I'm leading sales at Roundtable. So at Roundtable, we structure investment in private markets, either through fund as a service or deal by deal through SPVs. Specifically, when it comes to founders, we pull their investors into clean, efficient vehicle called SPV, so they can keep a clean cap table, focus on growing their company and not on admin, governance, everything. So I literally spend my days working with founders, raising from pre-seed to Series A, sometimes above, but mostly pre-seed from Series A. So I have a pretty direct view on hundreds of fundraising every year. About this webinar, so there are hundreds of webinars about fundraising. Most of them is only about advice like build relationships, tell a great story, that's it. Today, we're going inside the actual playbook of a founder, Pierre-Louis, who's raised 4 times across multiple companies from his very first raise, which was, and he will tell us, but a long, painful process, to his latest, the 6 million pre-seed rounds with Tier 1 investors with Alpic. It's the same person, same CEO, but with radically different outcomes. And so today we'll try to find out exactly what changed and what, of course, you can steal from that playbook. Quick word about Pierre-Louis. Pierre-Louis, the serial entrepreneurs, CEOs, co-founder of Alpic, Alpic's first MCP native cloud platform. So basically, and Pierre-Louis, correct me if I'm saying something wrong, but the infrastructure layer that lets AI agents connect to external services securely and at scale. And before Alpic, he co-founded Streamroot, a video delivery company that raised from Partech, Techstars, and that was acquired by Lumen Technologies. So across his career, he's done multiple fundraise. He's seen the full cycle, building a company, raising, scaling, and exiting. So Pierre-Louis, welcome. Thanks for doing this.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks for having me, and looking forward to the conversation today.
Yeah. Well, let's get into it. First question for you, Pierre-Louis. Maybe let's start with your journey. So you built Streamroot, you grew it, you sold it to Lumen Technologies in about, I think, 4 years. And then a few years later, you got the initial team back together and you started the Alpic. Could you walk us through that arc? What was Streamroot? How did the exit happen? And what made you decide to go again with the same people for Alpic?
Yeah, well, real quick, the past 10 years plus of my life. Started Streamroot in 2013. So in startup world, it's kind of prehistory. It wasn't, the ecosystem, talking about funding ecosystem, was completely different. I keep joking, saying that back then you were basically pitching 10 VCs in Paris, and if you had 10 no's, it was over because there weren't more people. And I started just right out of college, building, like you said, a video infrastructure company. We pretty early on moved to the US and created a company between the East Coast and Paris. We went through, like I said, the whole cycle, starting angel round, seed round, Series A, and then exit. That took it about 7 years, so a bit more than what you said, from inception to acquisition. And the acquisition was in 2019. After that, I actually stayed with the acquirer for about 3 years. Being on the other side, big corporation, big deals, big money, big revenue, was fun to see. And most recently, I started Alpic about a year ago, a bit less than a year ago, raised our first round last summer, and now growing the business. So yeah, it's been quite a journey, a lot of ups and downs, which is what's interesting, and also in the fundings, like some very easy funding and some horrible funding, and
we'll go into it.
A lot of learnings from that.
And what's different about building a company the second time? What did you know, like, on day one at Alpic, you didn't know on day one at Streamroot?
Well, obviously, when you pass about 10 years building something, hopefully you learn a little bit through the journey. So you're still making mistakes, but hopefully not the same mistakes. And you also have obviously, I think as we're focusing on funding, being a second-time founder right now in the ecosystem is very appreciated by the VCs, because especially when you exited your company and you actually gave money back to your investors, because not all the exits are actually making your investor rich. So when you're in that category, obviously it's a little bit easier to raise money, but you also know a little bit how it works, right? You've been there, you're not shy anymore. You're trying to change the balance between you and the VCs and kind of be more in control than they are in control, which was exactly the completely different when I first raised. You also know people. And it's a lot of it is about relationship. When you know people, trust is being created. And when you assemble a team like I did with people that have been working together for about 10 years, that known each other for 10, 15 years, you also de-risking the company, because when you're raising a first round, team is the most valuable asset, if not the only asset. So when you have a team of repeat founders that known each other for a long time, that have been through these ups and downs, that de-risk the investment for the investors.
Of course, and so you are building Alpic, I think, between Paris and San Francisco, right? Is this like this dual presence? I guess it's a deliberate choice. How does it, shape the company today, being on the two continents?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we're in like a tech infrastructure, developer infrastructure. So you have to have a US go-to-market early on in the history of the company. And that's also the way we built Streamroot. So we really had like a French-American DNA almost since day one. With Streamroot, we didn't do the typical, like, you raise a Series A and then you have enough money to go to the US. We went to the US with no money, no customers, almost no product. And that's kind of the same approach that we're doing here at Alpic, because it's a little bit more typical now to go there early. Back then it was more like, okay, raise a Series A, prove your market in Europe, and then go there. And we didn't do that. There's some pro and con. Obviously, when you're going after multiple markets, it's harder, because you're diluting your investment and people and money and time across different markets. But at the same time, if you want to compete on a global scale and you want to be the category leader, not only like raising 10x less than your counterpart in the US, you got to do that from day one. You got to be identified there from day one. So that's really, you spend a lot of time in the plane, and it's not easy, but at the same time, you create your brand over there since day one, and that's really important.
How many back and forth are you doing between Paris and San Francisco, like every month or every quarter?
I'm there every month. Yeah.
Okay, every month.
Yeah. And we have one founder now moving there full time.
Okay. And maybe on this first question, just curious to hear about, the stream. I mean, did the Streamroot exit create expectation from investors, from yourself, about what you should do next and so on? Did you feel that?
Well, to be honest, I don't really care about the expectation of the VCs. I care about my own expectations, and it's more my motivation than anything. I mean, obviously, the reason why to go back, you got to be a bit crazy, right, to do it again, because it's really hard and it's really painful, and it's like everything in life, right? After you only remember the good parts, and when you go back at it, it's like, yeah, it is actually painful to build a company. But no, I mean, going back to your question, I think for me, when I sold Streamroot, we were like kind of a Series B stage, and my ambition was always like, well, I love to kind of go further and see the next stages and go to like a bigger scale and bigger company and bigger revenues. So that's definitely one of the motivation of Alpic. And this is also really important to know that when you start a company, because your ambition is your ambition, right? There's no judge. Some people want to do like, want to absolutely go to IPO. Some others, they okay for a smaller exit, and like there's no good to good answers. And sometimes you make more money with a smaller exit than an IPO, actually, but that's a different question. But I think it's really important to know that when you start, because you got to pick your investors based on what you're going to do, right? If you're raising with Sequoia, you better go big, right? Because if you want to sell your company for $50 million and you're happy with that, and perhaps you're super happy with that, because that can be a life-changing outcome, that can be like a great success, but Sequoia won't be happy with it. They have to deploy like billions and billions of dollars, so they don't care about the $50 million exit. On the other hand, if you want to go big with a VC that doesn't have the ambition of going big, and they might want to go exit the business earlier and they're happy with a smaller return, your alignments won't be good. So it's very important to go with the partner at the right stage with that match your ambition, because the story and the alignment between your investors and you will be completely different.
Thank you. I'm just looking at the chat and the questions. So Guillaume, why the ski mask? So we might answer this question at the end of the call, at the end of the webinar. We'll see. Bushra is asking, how do you usually react when an investor who was very enthusiastic suddenly pulls out at the last minute? So maybe we'll cover that in the next part of the webinar. We are being told by investors and clients. So Thomas is asking, we are being told by investors and clients that you need headquarters in US and France, office lab must be only a subsidiary. Do you confirm? Do you feel that it's a headquarters in US and office / like a lab, more like a lab in France and as a subsidiary?
So it's a really, do you flip or do you not flip? Flip or not flip? That's the question.
Yeah. Flipping, just for the audience, flipping is you incorporated the company in France and then you change the headquarters of the company from France to, like, flipping in the US is flipping company to the US, and so now the new official headquarters is in the US. So
here's my view on that. 10 years ago, it wasn't even a question. Like, if you wanted to have a global ambition, if you wanted to raise money from US investors, they wouldn't even look at the deal if you were a top corporation in France. So I think it was a no-brainer back then. And that's what we did for Streamroot very early on. We did the US accelerator, and it was required to do it. YC is requiring you to do it as well. Now, I think it changed a little bit over the past few years for a couple of reasons. First, many US VCs now have teams in Europe. So Axel, Sequoia, Lightspeed, Headline, you name it, Anderson Horowitz. They have people on the ground and they actively invest in European companies that don't necessarily have a top corporation in the US. So I would say if you want to go all in the US and you want to all move there and do it, just flip. Like, there's no reason of having like a top co in the US. If you believe that France will be a really big like entity hiring a lot of people, I think there's a question now. Again, I have a 50% feeling about it. I think it depends on your market, on how much the US versus Europe is going to be big. And to be honest, I think there's a geopolitical question now, which wasn't the question a few years ago. With the tension between Europe and the US, the geopolitical tension is real, and there's also like what you want to do. Do you want to have like European companies that are able to be global leaders? Do you want to contribute to that, or is it too hard? And so again, I think it's a little bit of what you think personally, what your market is, but my points are you gotta stay pragmatic. At the end of the day, it's being pragmatic. It's like if you cannot raise because of that, you just flip. Like at one point, it's business. You got to make your business a success. But I think you will be able to raise even if you don't do it. The other thing I want to say is like, what are the reasons why you want to flip? And one reason is investments. The other reason usually is exit. It's like if you're a US top co, the exit might be easier with a US company. But that's only 50% true, because when I sold my company, it was a US company. So we are the top co company, but we happen to have 2/3 of our employees under the French entity. And I can tell you that the US lawyers gave us the hardest time about everything regarding the law employment, everything you name it. They were so afraid about all the employees we had under the US entity. So at the end of the day, we were a US top co, but because we still had like a lot of employment, a lot of employees in France, they're still pretty worried about it.
Okay. I'm seeing again some question in the chat. A question from Louis asking question if he should ignore or build relationships with VCs. Louis, we will answer this question, and I will bring your question in the right part, like I think in the next couple of minutes. So just to continue, so you've sold the company. You are now doing it again with Alpic. So let's get into the fundraising side of this journey. So you already said it. You've raised multiple times across 2 different companies. Your first raise, you told me it was a long, painful process. I think you told me it was like almost 1 year to raise your first fundraising, and your latest, the 6 million pre-seed round was like totally different story and outcome. So maybe at a high level, what changed between those two? So you're repeat entrepreneurs. I mean, there is a lot of criteria, but do you believe there is something that fundamentally changed in the way you approach fundraising now?
Yeah, there's a couple of things I can touch base. One important thing is timing. The timing of fundraising and the timing in general in the startup is, sometimes we call it luck, but it's really, really important. You got to raise at the right time. That's gonna make things way easier. So to give the example of the round, my seed round, that took like about a year to close. I basically went raising too early. And I went there. I was like, well, we did that program in the US. It's demo day. Now I go fundraise. Well, you know what? I didn't have the metric to go raise. And so I spent like 4 months talking to everyone, and everyone passing and say like, and it was like super painful, one after the other, just everyone passing. And at one point say, well, you know what? Let's burn as little money as we can, go back to work, actually get to the right metrics that the people want to see to get the right traction, and then go back to the fundraising and do it. And that's what we did. After 4-6 months, we kind of learned, we stopped for a couple of months, we executed, we rethink about the story, we actually achieved what we told the people we met that we're going to achieve, and then we went back on funding, and it was and it worked finally. So the timing, super important. Same thing for that one. We raised. We were on a super hot topic that was just emerging on MCP a year ago. It was emerging. Everybody was talking about it. It was like the hot chick in the room. Super hype topic. We were the first ones to go pitch the investors on that topic. I have competitors that went out there 3, 4, 6 months later. They all heard about us. They all knew us because we come right. And what's funny is that 3 months later, people were saying like, well, like there's nothing new. Everybody does that. It's easy to do. It's like, when I went pitching the VCs, they were like, oh my God, this is the future. I never heard about that. This is incredible. It's all about timing. And that's the reason why at the beginning, we didn't want to raise that early, because we actually didn't need the money that early. But at the same time, I knew if I was waiting another 6 months, I would be in trouble. And just to even go further, 2 months ago, the market went crazy saying like MCP technology is dead. It's like they were like the CTO of Perplexity that said like MCP is dead. People at Cutfair were saying that, which is absolutely dumb. But if you were raising at that time, I can tell you that you're never going to raise. So timing the market is super important, with not only your own metrics and what you're achieving, but also with what's going on in the market right now. You got to time the market, because topics are hype at a certain point. People are going to make bets. You're going to have super VC, especially in Silicon Valley. You're going to have like the top 5, 10 VCs are going to make bets. If you arrive after they make the bets, it's over.
Yeah. So you would say that if you had to rank what mattered the most in making Alpic fundable at pre-seed, is definitely timing over maybe market or product. It's definitely, I mean, it's a mix of market plus timing plus
it's not I don't think it's the most important thing. I think it's one of the things I learned quite a bit. I think the most important thing at seed pre-seed is the team. Like it's definitely the team. It's like, what have you done? What did you prove? And it's not only about being a repeat founder. It's about like you've been working somewhere before, or you just built something amazing in just a few weeks, even if you're out of school. And you have like a super complementary, super smart team, super sharp guys, people that want to work hard, that want to go hard. So it's definitely the team, number one. I think in the number two, obviously, the market and what you're building is going to be super important. I think at the same level is the vision. And that is where in France, we're very bad. We're not really good at selling the vision. And that's where the Americans are amazing. It's like sometimes they have a shitty product or like not even a better team, but they are able to sell the vision. And same thing for me, like it took me a lot of time. I remember when I was starting my first company, I couldn't even grasp what vision was. Like it was so bullshit to me. I was like they keep asking like, what do I need to have a vision? What's your vision? Whatever. I was like, what the fuck is a vision? Like I'm building this product, I'm selling to these guys. Like what is a vision? And now I kind of understand it way better. It's really the long-term play. It's like a combination of the market dynamic and what role you want to play in that market dynamic. And it doesn't even matter what you're building in terms of product. At the end of the day, you want to solve that big, massive problem, which can generate hundreds, if not millions of dollars of revenue, billions of dollars of revenue. So I think it's taking a step back and looking long-term and combining. So team, market, vision, and obviously early signs of what you're building is actually interesting people.
Of course. And 2 questions from the chat. So Elias is asking on metrics, in your opinion, when is the metrics already good enough, an excuse from a VC who doesn't want to invest anyway, and when is it a real reason? How do you grasp that?
You mean so VCs, their job is to say no. Like they very rarely say yes, but they're afraid of creating a bad relationship with you, because you might actually be super successful and they will look bad. So they are driven by FOMO. They're driven by making decisions with very little information and spreading their risk. So the reason they tell you, sometimes it's interesting, sometimes it's not, right? Sometimes it's real. Like if you hear like 10 times, like, well, you know what, this competitor is doing the same thing and raised 10x what you raised, you might want to look into it. Like it might be something actually real. But sometimes they would say, well, the timing is not good. You need to come back when you have more traction. That's the easy one. What if OpenAI does exactly what you do? That's another easy one. At the end of the day, they need to find a reason. So again, I wouldn't be too focused. Obviously, try to get as much feedback as you can. And if it's always the same feedback, there might be reasonable, it might be real, but don't take too much attention into that. Just move on and think about, okay, what failed? Is it your pitch? Is it your metrics? Is it your timing? Is it your team? Like that are the 4 things they're looking at. So at the end of the day, something is not working. Yeah, I don't know if it answered the question. That's what I would.
No, I think it definitely answered the question. And just one follow-up question, and here from Louis. How do you feel metrics evolve now? What's your take on the expected ARR for VC firm today to raise like 1 million pre-seed or 2 to 5 million seed? In Louis precising is building in AI agent field. Do you have some input on that?
The problem is that there's no rules, especially
about leverage. That's always the same thing. It's all about leverage.
It's leverage.
Yeah.
I raised $6 million with not a product, not and like no revenue, no customers. Jan Lequin just raised $1 billion with like an idea of building role models. So I would say there isn't, in this early stage, there isn't really a rule. What I would say though is that you gotta look at the market, right? So there's kind of, if you're in the AI world, this $4 to 5, $6 million, like $3 to $6 million range is probably what you can potentially expect with a great team, with like some early traction, and proving that the market is going the direction you're going. So I think the metrics start to apply when you go to Series A. And even there's like a very widespread range of Series A. But I think when you're getting into Series A, it starts to be a little bit more, because there's a huge cut between the number of seed, pre-seed, and Series A. It's like, I don't know the numbers, you probably know better than I do, but it's like 5-10% of the company that are actually raising a seed that goes to Series A. And then you look at the revenue. And today I would say you got to be in that $1 to $3 million ARR range to raise a proper Series A, or have like a huge rapid traction, because now in AI you can get revenue earlier than what you had. Sometimes having revenue for pre-seed is even a bad thing. It's as crazy as it is. It can be a really bad thing to have revenue at that time, because you're actually showing first sign of a business that the fund will extrapolate. Where if you have nothing, they can look at nothing. Like so the revenue is not even on the table. You're only talking about the vision, about the market. So again, timing. It's like, should you raise pre-revenue, post-revenue? If you have post-revenue, know that they're going to look at it. If you pre-revenue, they can't look at it. And again, the metrics, you got to show traction at the end of the day. Like, what is the traction? It's like, again, I raised with no product, but I talked to like a zillion people in the market. I knew everyone about anyone who was building MCP servers. We were like the top contributor of the protocol. We have like all these people that we talk to, they say, yeah, if they build it, that sounds like cool. And we have like many options of where we could go if what we were thinking about doing it was not exactly the right product. So still, you need to show some sort of traction and some sort of market direction. But revenue numbers at seed and pre-seed, I don't think this is what people are looking at.
Cool, thank you, Pierre-Louis. Maybe now let's get maybe into the part that I think explains a lot why the Alpic raise went the way it did. Is because the Alpic raise actually didn't start when you sent the deck. It started much earlier. So I know there are two camps on this. Founders will never talk to VCs until they are actively raising, and founders who build relationships with investors long before they basically need money and they go out in the roadshow. So you are clearly in the second camps.
Yeah.
Could you walk us through your approach? When does the relationship building start, and what does it actually look like?
I mean, I'm definitely in the second camp. I almost never raised money with people I didn't know before, at least not with the lead investor. And I think this is the vast majority of the deals. Obviously, some deals are like super hot and they go pitch everyone in 1 week and they get like all the VCs and they can pick and choose, but that's very, very rare. So first, why to build a relationship, and then we can talk about how. Why is because when you know someone and you've seen him evolving, it's way easier to make a decision on the trajectory than on a single point. It's like when you met this guy a year ago, he was doing this stuff, and then he iterated, and now they have customers, and now they're doing this, and now he assembled an amazing team. You kind of see the trajectory, and you can project that. When you only have like 1 point, I mean, this guy for 1 day, like, yeah, I probably need to call a bunch of friends to know if he knows him and if he's legit, but I don't have that myself. So it's super easier. Same thing that you probably, and on the other hand, like you probably don't want to get married with someone you meet at first sight, like this crazy TV show. You're gonna stay with these investors for me, the first company, they stayed with me for like 7 years. And there's been like some rough time where we're like almost bankrupt. And there's been like happy times when we're growing fast. But you gotta like do your own due diligence. And usually with first-time founder, you don't do that because you say, well, whoever's gonna give me money, I'm happy with it. But some investors can be super toxic. You need to have a good relationship with them. You're gonna have some late night calls with them during the tough time. And they will be the one potentially breaking or making your exits, or breaking or making like giving you more money when when times will be tough. So again, time allows you to do your own due diligence. So that's the reason why it's super, super important. How now? It's the question. There's a few things. I think people are afraid, and I was afraid talking with investors the first time. I was like, wow, what I'm going to tell them, they're going to write it somewhere, and then they're going to say, well, this guy is no good. But they're just people like you and me, right? They're just normal people. And I think you got to try to counterbalance the power, because usually you have like the VCs, which is like very like hype, is the one saying no or yes, and you're like the one begging for money. You got to change that mindset. Like you need to be at the same level. You need to talk to them like you are at the same level and play that game with them. But you can meet with them, like for example, for this for the last round of funding, I raised in a very short amount of time, but I spent the year before having coffee with investors, going to events. So like, well, you know what? I just moved back to France. I'm not thinking about what's next. I'm probably going to go raising at one point. I have nothing, and it's easy to talk with them when you have nothing to sell. Like I have nothing to sell. I don't have equity to sell. So there's no questions about my metrics. I'm just like, well, good to meet you. What you guys are doing, tell you more about this fund. And it's also going to create, we're going to talk about it later, but they're going to talk between each other and they're going to identify you in the ecosystem. And you have the relationship. So when you're actually ready to raise, because you need to be ready, you can just like call a few people and don't start asking for intros where you want to raise money. At least you already have that Rolodex of people you meet. And just to give you perhaps another example, the seed round that took me a year to close, the Partech told me 3 times no before saying yes. They met with me like in 2013 when we were just starting. We went through like a Paris incubator. We had some discussion. A few months later, we said, well, we're raising like an angel round. Do you want to invest? I said, well, it's too early. No. 6 months later, said, well, now we're actually starting our seed round. They said, well, you know what? No, you don't have the metric. And then we got the metric, and I said, no. This guy, I knew him for a year and a half, and he told me no twice. And the third time he said yes. And because he knew me and he's seen like what these guys is actually delivering, like it's tough. Yeah. It took a little bit of time at the beginning, but now they're actually into something and they're delivering and they're smart and they're good. So again, building relationship with people I think is always good. Don't be shy about talking with investors. And how you do it? Well, you go to events. There's like VCs love to talk. Like their job is to make you lose time. Like they literally spend half of their days lose their time to the entrepreneurs.
But that's very interesting. And concretely, so to bring the one of Louis' question. So Louis is telling us he has 100 plus investors, emails on LinkedIn requesting calls, yes, because VC, their job is to meet with a lot of founders.
Yes.
And he's saying we're raising pre-seed in September. How should we handle them? Like ignore, nurture, pitch, send the deck now in September, or post-close? And he's also saying, should we close a 300K angel save first to create FOMO with VCs? So concretely, how do you handle those requests of calls? We know we have a lot of junior VCs, their job is to fill the pipe for the partner. Yeah. How do you concretely manage that?
Yeah, and it can feel really like a harassment, like receiving inbounds. I mean, on one point is good because you feel like you're the shiny object, but on the other hand, you cannot just do 5 hours of VC calls every week. So what I would recommend is to start to create relationship with the people you think would be a good fit. So don't talk to everyone. If you have a lot of inbounds, pick the one that you feel would be a good fit. You don't have anything to sell. You just create relationship. You just tell the story. You don't tell much. You don't tell everything about the business. You sell them the vision, and you tell them, "Oh, you know what? It was great to meet. Let's meet again, in a few months when we're ready." But don't do that with everyone. Be picky about the one you're talking. Yeah. It's also it's the same thing. If you're talking to everyone, you're losing that kind of exclusive aspect. So pick the one you think worth your time and worth you building a relationship right now, and don't spend too much time. Like a coffee, a 30 minutes call is more than enough to get to know each other, learn more about the VC, and tell your vision and your and what you're building. Then about raising an angel round versus not. If you need the cash now, take the money. I would say, if you need the cash now, just take the money. And if you think you're gonna go faster, just do it. If you don't need the cash, just wait and try to create a super concentrated, super hype, super FOMO period with everyone, the angels, the VC, in just a small period of time, instead of dragging for a little while. So if you have, again, usually having money on the table, you take it. Especially if you need it. So if you have people that want to give you 300K now and the terms are really good, I will take the money. And you think it's going to help you accelerate. If you don't need the money and you think it's better to concentrate everything in a few months, just wait.
And maybe one quick question: what's the worst way to approach a VC before a raise? And also for a first-time founder with no VC network at all, how did I start? Where does relationship building begin from zero? Yeah. So is there a bad way to do it? And how do you start?
So how do you start? I mean, again, I think be visible on the social media is good now, because the junior is gonna contact you and you're gonna start creating a relationship. But real life, there's nothing better than events and real life encounter, especially because you're building a relationship there. So events, VCs love throwing parties and being any type of events, tech events, meetups, hackathons, things like that. Just go there, both visible, go talk to a few of them. They're going to then introduce you to other people. They might introduce you to potential partners, customers as well. They're very, very well connected. That's their job. So I would say, like, go out there and meet people face to face. If there's really someone you want to talk, just cold outreach could work. But I would always recommend introduction as well. Like, if there's really someone you want to talk, like, find someone that's going to give you a warm introduction. And if it's a founder they invested in, it's definitely the best way of talking to a VC. So that's how you start. Now, the worst thing, I would say the worst thing for fundraising is when it drags. When it drags, like, in a few weeks, months, and forever. That's the worst thing, because it's all about momentum.
Yeah.
It's all about creating the dynamic and the momentum of the deal. And if you start by having a process that's, like, for example, I see entrepreneurs sometimes that ask me exits, but they intros, sorry. But it's like they're gonna have like 2 meetings with VCs on week 1, and like 3 on week 2, and then 4 on week 4, and another 2, like, and then, like, all their first meetings is basically spread out in like a month and a half. Like, this is super bad practice, because you're going to have people saying no's and no's and no's and no's. You want to have a lot of no's and potentially a yes in a very short period of time. So, like, having a round that is dragging is going to be a super bad sign, especially, again, because people talk between each other, and you won't create that FOMO moment, which is like, well, do it now or never. If you already have half the VCs of Paris or wherever that's saying no, that said no already, you lost that momentum.
And that's a perfect transition to the next part, because next part about like fundraising dynamics, FOMO, and how do you and like becoming the hot deal. So like to summarize, like, you've built the relationships, you've got a narrative, and now you actually start the process. And this is where it's super interesting, because like a 6 million seed round, pre-seed round, is not only being only about being ready. It's about creating actually dynamics where investors feel that, like, they have to move fast. And so, how do you engineer FOMO in a fundraise? Could you walk us through that? How did you make Alpic the hot deal of the week, and how you create urgency, basically?
Yeah, it's well, I don't know if I have the ultimate playbook for that, but first you got to be ready, like you said. It's like, you can talk to VCs when you're not ready and you have like a high level discussion, but when you go for it, you got to be ready. So whatever is that you think you need to go raise that round, you need to have it ready at that time.
Yep.
Whether it's a deck, whether it's a customer proof point, whether it's like having built an MVP, whatever it is, you got to be ready. Then when you're ready, you gotta, what I did is, like, I first tested with a couple of VCs that I didn't really want. It's like they were like nice to have, but not like top of my list.
Yeah.
Kind of get a couple of calls to see what was the reaction. And the reaction was like super positive. Like, people wanted to engage, continue the discussion, go fast. When I got that signal, I'll say, okay, the market seems ready. My pitch seems to be good enough. The story, they like it. The week after, on like the first 2-3 days of the week, I contacted less than 10 VCs that I really wanted, and I did not contact anyone else. And the way I say it's like, well, listen, I only contacted a few VCs that I like, that I would like to work with, and I give you the opportunity to look at the deal, which is kind of really kind of turning the table around. And the deal is going to go super fast. I already have early signs that people are super excited about the team and the product and the team. And we will need to have term sheets either by the end of the week or like early next week. and I don't, and then I do the meetings, I chat, I do the pitch, and then I got like a lot of people that contacted me because they heard about the deal now, because you're out there. And now you have to play your dance of like not talking to too many people. So you keep the deal super exclusive, but also keeping backups, right? Because if these 10 guys say no, wow, you're fucked.
So like what really you say to the guy you don't like, hey, yeah, I'm raising, but like how do you manage people asking you for a call because like there are VC funds, they want to invest, but you want to keep it exclusive. How do you manage that?
Well, you have to play your dance. Like, you know what? We're just talking to a few investors right now. You keep them hot, but you don't like talk to them right away. You wait a few days or like a week to get the first answers, and then you're going to them. Again, not dragging too long, because if you're dragging the deal, it's not good. So you create that exclusivity.
Yeah,
it's kind of and that creates FOMO, because what's exclusive, people have the fear of missing out. And when you already know all these, not all these people, but many of these people, and you already created relationship and building, you know that all these guys are going to be competing, and they might want to get in the deal fast. And if you don't do that, because again, it's not that easy to create, and you might not want to be too picky, at least don't talk to a lot of people in the short period of time. Like, always start with VCs to try out your pitch and get ready. That's perhaps not the top VCs you want to have on the cap tables. And then get like the next 20 meetings in just 1 week, and that's it.
No, but interesting, because even as a first-time founder, if you build relationships, you are building. I mean, you have an interesting team building in a very interesting market. You can kind of engineer FOMO. Actually, you can engineer this exclusivity by being strategic in a way you approach VCs, and so that's super. I think super interesting.
It's a poker game. Like, it's really a poker game. Like
exactly.
They have their cards, you have your cards, and you playing the timing, you're playing the exclusivity. You need to show yourself bigger than you are, more exclusive and more hot than you are, and it's dense. Like it's really dense.
And just going back to the vision, a question from Jean. Can you circle back to what VC expect about vision? So when during those a few weeks, like few days, few weeks, you pitch. So when you pitch the moon, they roll their eyes, and when you pitch too reasonably, they are not excited. So what makes it both exciting yet believable? And is it the same with European VCs? Can you elaborate on that about vision?
Yeah, on the vision side, you got to match the people you're talking to. It's always the same thing. Like if you're talking to an angel or like a micro VC, and you tell him that it's like, especially like a French micro VC, and you tell him like it's IPO or nothing, like they say, well, okay, I heard that story before. Yeah. But if you're pitching Sequoia, you better pitch that. You better be big and bold. Or if you're pitching a US VC, you better be like super bold and super big, super ambitious, because that's the way all the US founders will do it. And that's what they need for their return on the fund. So I would say you got to find the balance. But I don't think many people will blame you of being too ambitious. And if they blame you for that, they might not be the right VC for you. Again, I think in France, particularly, founders were too shy. And it's because of our like culture and many other things. So I think what I see, and I'm also like a small angel myself and been investing in a bunch of startups using Roundtable. Most of the time, the problem is the other way around. There's not enough ambition, vision in the pitch. So yeah. If you think you're too ambitious and then you go talk to a US VC, you're probably 10x too low compared to where you should be.
No, absolutely. A question from Guillaume: is there in this question around engineering FOMO and building momentum? Is there a best time in the year to raise? Like for instance, in France, people say nothing happened in July, August. Is that true in your opinion? Do you believe there's a time in the year where it's really the best time to raise?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, especially in France, don't go start a fundraising in July. Wait until September. So usually there's a lot of people starting in September because August, none of the European VC work. It's not the case in the US, but US it would be more like July, around 4th of July, where the VCs are really unwinding. They want to close all their deals before 4th of July. VCs usually in the US, they want to close their deal before 4th of July, before Thanksgiving, or before Christmas. The rest is kind of okay. France is like before mid-July or before Christmas. The rest of the year is kind of okay. The thing that a deal might take, again, it's not that easy to get term sheets in just a couple of weeks. Probably going to take a few months. So if you start in September, and that's also give a deadline. So another thing I used for my funding, which was a real deadline, is that I start my funding in early June, and my wife was giving birth to her second kid early July. So I told them anyway, it has to happen in the next 4 weeks. Otherwise, I won't be able to attend. I won't be able to be available to close the deal. So create things like that as well. I use that a lot. It was a joke as well, but it was real. I really need to sign the term sheet in the next few weeks. Otherwise, I won't be able to do it. So yeah, that's kind of my answer.
And if Simon is asking if a VC told 1 year ago, is it worth insisting for next round? Or does it depend on their initial feedback? I mean, I think you kind of answer it with Partech. Partech is a good example.
Partech told me no twice. So again, sometimes it's just done, but I think again, it's all going to be about your momentum, your traction, what's happening within the company. You can definitely don't go back to it 2 months later. This is a bad practice. If someone say no for the same round, don't insist. If they say no, they say no, and you will look bad to go back to it. But if you either stop the round and raising later, or if it's just another round, go back talking to them.
I would love to quickly discuss about VC radio, what you call VC radio, what is called VC radio, because there's something that happens, and you told it during a raise, is that most founders know exist, but they don't really understand it. So walk us through this VC radio stuff. So when you're raising, what's actually happening between investors when you're not in the room? How do VCs talk to each other about your deals?
So VC talk to each other all the time for a few reasons. One is to brag, because they like to brag that they've been in that deal and they've not been in that deal, and compare themselves. But two is through collaboration. They don't like to take all the risk themselves. It's funny because they're competing on the deals. So there's only one lead, so they're actually competing. But at the same time, they love to see other investors being willing to put money on the deal, because that's create another proof point of validation and de-risking their own decision, even if it's not always very objective. So they talk all the time, and they're gonna talk pre-funding. So if you go talk to them, they're going to introduce you to other VCs. They're going to talk into parties to other VCs, and they're attending a lot of events. That's also why they talk a lot, because they're attending a lot of events, and there's usually a bunch of events there, and they're talking about, okay, what have you seen? And the first question they ask each other is what have you seen interesting lately? And if you're in that category, your name is going to circle around, which can be annoying as well, because you're going to have like a tons of VC reaching out to you and not necessarily at the right time. But at the same time, you're flagged as someone potentially super interesting for the funding. But they're also talking during the fundraising process. So that's the reason why I was talking about like being exclusive. It's like if you talk to only a few, you're sure that even if you're talking to only a few, 3-4 days later, the whole VC ecosystem know you're raising.
Yeah.
Especially if you've been identified before by talking to them. So if you have this exclusivity, they want to get in, but there's like, well, you're kind of playing the gatekeeper, like who you're getting in and who you're not getting in. You can leverage that radio VC at your advantage because you know they'll be talking. And you can also use, if you have angels that are super connected,
that was my question.
Use them as like the leak, like the same people are leaking stuff to the press. You use them as leaking stuff and there's a couple of guys in Paris that are good at that. So there's some like scouts or some like small VCs. You use them, it's like, well, and these guys are all the parties. So they go there and it's like, well, I'm in that deal. This is the hottest deal possible. It's amazing, but I'm not sure you can get in. It's gonna really help you create that FOMO. But it also be at your counter advantage. That's the good way. It's like when your deal is dragging and a lot of people says no, the name is out there that X, Y, Z already said no, and it's not good, right? Because the more people, I mean, it's normal that people are like, again, I talked to 250 VC firms in my life. Only 3 gave me a term sheet, right? I mean, more than 5 perhaps gave me a term sheet. So most of the people will say no. It's okay. It's normal. But if it drags and more people say no and more people talk between each other about, well, there's this deal, but there's this stuff is not good and this stuff is not good. And they might not even have a good reason why they say no, but they're going to spread it across the VC ecosystem.
And for the angel, so you have angel from Mistral, Datadog, Dataiku. So did they come in because of the FOMO dynamic? Were they on a separate track? And also, like, how do those angel like carry weight with in the VC's conversations?
Yeah, I think angel on first round are super important because first you want to have people that's been there, done that you can call and that can help you. You want to create credibility on your cap table when you have like super impressive entrepreneurs. It's definitely bringing value to the cap table. You can use them as intros to super well-known VCs. And like if you get an intro from like one of the best entrepreneurs out there, it's always going to be stronger than any other intros. So yeah, I mean, you should probably focus on your lead. That's really what makes or break a fundraising. But at the same time, if you start to accumulate some really nice brand, it create credibility. It's again de-risking. If these guys said yes, it's probably because these guys are smart or they know what they're talking about. So at the same time as well, you need to I think be picky about your cap table. Don't let anyone in. It's not because like an angel wants to be in that you should let him. You should try to give equity to people that you think will bring value, whether it's with their name or with the like kind of day-to-day help. But you should really focus on this one.
Perfect. We are just a couple of minutes left. We have many questions in the chat, so I'll try to bring them in the conversation. Question from Guillaume. How can we concretely identify the best VCs for our company? They all say similar things about their philosophy and it's very high level. We've been approached by 50 plus VCs and they all look the same from the outside.
Yeah. talk to entrepreneurs. Talk to entrepreneurs that raise money. That's the best way.
Due diligence, basically, do a reverse due diligence on the VC.
Talk to entrepreneurs, talk to the entrepreneurs around you that raise money already. They've already talked to all of them. There's a rank, basically, to be honest. There's like the tier 1s, the tier 2s, and the people you don't want to talk to. And then outside of this ranking, then there's your personal fit, and then there's your company fit. Because potentially some tier 1s, they're amazing, but either you don't like the guy, or like they're not a good match with what you're doing, because they're really good at, I don't know, biotech, and you're an AI company, or they have no track record in the ecosystem you're doing. So I would say, to be honest, it's fairly easy to know who's top tier 1, who's tier 2, and who's tier 3. Just talk to other entrepreneurs that have been out there for a few years, and if you hear the same thing for 2 or 3 people, they'll tell you.
Yeah. Simon is asking, will a VC invest in a sector segment where he has already invested in? In other words, is it worth talking to them or risky because they could share info with the competitor?
So good question. Depends on the VC. If you want to raise with Sequoia, they probably already invested in your competitor, and that's one reason like some of these big VCs, you take the brand, but at the same time they're probably in 2 or 3 of your competitors already because they're deploying so much capital. Smaller VCs is not that much the case. It's a bit counterintuitive. When I raised my first with my first company, I really insisted in talking to a few VCs that already invested in the space. So I was kind of the video streaming infrastructure space, and I was targeting a lot of the VCs that knew that space. But it was actually a bad idea, because first they knew too much about the industry, and sometimes it's good to have like a VC that is a bit naive about a vertical and doesn't know like the ins and outs of that vertical. Because they all probably got burnt by it, because everything is going slower than expected and everything is harder than expected. So when you don't know, it's like when you're first-time founder, you're a bit more crazy because you don't know how hard it is. So also the other reason is like when they have a big exposure already in their fund into a category, they want to diversify, right? That's kind of de-risking their portfolio, and don't put all the money in one vertical. Well, now they all have to do AI, but there's plenty of approach of AI. As far as sharing information with your competitor, they might. That's the game, They're taking a meeting, and sometimes I receive decks from my competitors coming from VCs. Like it happens. It's true. They won't say they do it, but sometimes they do, or they don't share the deck, but they tell you all about it. Beware that when you go fundraising and you're sharing a deck out there, it's public information. It's like you put it on the internet on your website. So if there's something you really don't want it in there, don't put it in there, because your competitor probably gonna end up having it. Everyone will have it. Like if you really want to have a deck and you're well connected in the ecosystem, you end up getting it.
All right, 2 last questions, Pierre-Louis, and then we'll stop the webinar. Question from Guillaume. We often get approached by juniors at the VCs. Is it worth it to have the first call with them, or is it better to reach a partner directly, assuming we can?
If you can, it's always better to talk to the partner. But I'd say don't neglect entirely the juniors. If they're good, they also kind of need to bring deals, and it will be for them like if they really bring a big deal, a nice deal, for them is a way to go up, right? So if you're that opportunity, you can make their career as well. So I would say always better to have a relationship with the decision maker. But if it's a fund that you really think is a good fit and you like it, start creating a relationship with this guy, and perhaps he's going to bring you to a bigger guy. And if you know 2-3 people down the road in that fund, it's going to be better.
Pierre-Louis, one last question. What about the ski mask? Why the ski mask?
Well, that's became the Alpic signature. We're wearing it often now. So why the ski mask? The mask? Well, the funny, I mean, the story behind it is that it's a big pivot, Alpic pivot. We had a ski shop originally, and we saw MCP arriving and say, well, you know what, we need to completely stop that ski shop adventure and just go for it and build MCP servers. So now we have a ton of ski masks that we need to use, and this is why we found the way.
Love it. Pierre-Louis, thank you very much. I think it has been exactly what we promised, like lesson learned from someone who's done it multiple times. For everyone watching, if you guys are structuring around and want help managing the operational complexity, like angels, SPVs, cap table management, that's what we do at Roundtable. So please reach out. And Pierre-Louis, thank you very much. That was really great. Thank you for your time.
Well, thank you very much for having me, and I hope some of it was useful. And if you guys want to reach out, feel free to ping me on LinkedIn, or I'll try to help if I can.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. Thank you, Pierre-Louis. Bye-bye. See you soon.
Cheers.